Okay, everybody, welcome to this lunchtime event. I'm delighted to be your host today. My name's Andrew Yates. I'm one of the founders at Artesian, and I'll be your host today. There'll be some co-hosts. I'll just explain a little bit about the agenda, and then we'll get right into it. First of all, just a little bit of hygiene. In a moment, I think we'll be placing you on mute. It is an interactive session. You can capture questions. Or we'll capture questions that you might want to write in the chat. There'll also be an interactive poll, which we'll ask you to participate in, which will run throughout the session. Just as a tip, if you're not overly familiar with using Zoom, if you could click on the speaker view in the top right-hand corner, and then that will pin Anthony to the center of the screen. Just to let you know, we'll be asking Anthony a couple of questions. It'll take about 15-20 minutes for Anthony to get through some of the content we've asked him to think about. And then we will break into breakout rooms. It'll all be done automatically for you. You have to do nothing. And in those breakout rooms, there'll be a co-host who will just facilitate a little bit of a Q&A. Chatham House in the breakout rooms. We will be recording the main session for people who have been unable to attend today, but we will not be recording the breakout sessions where we hope we're going to get some interesting views, opinions, and content. So without further ado, let me welcome Anthony Gruppo, who is CEO of Marsh Commercial. And I'm just going to get right into it. Anthony, how have you been managing through this last 6 weeks, and what, if anything, has really surprised you in a positive way about your experience during lockdown?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Before we get started, just thanks everyone for coming, and congratulations to Artesian and the team for having the vision to put these types of seminars together. So what surprised me is sometimes my own behavior, right? Because as you start to work this way and you think, can you motivate yourself? Can you put a passion to potential and performance working in this kind of a paradigm shift? So you always look internally first, and then you realize what surprises you is the adaptability of humanity and how quickly people will purpose, those that are driven to achieve, can achieve in any environment. And you really see it, right? I think you've all heard this, and I'll try not to say things today that are just commonplace and that we've all talked about in all kinds of venues, because I looked at some of your backgrounds, some very talented people in this webinar today. So what I saw immediately was how close organizations came, the need that people have for clear, defined, and clarity around leadership, but the support that they offered each other. It's fascinating, isn't it, that you can have a large office building with many floors, but yet the people may not know each other from floor to floor or even 10 to 12 feet away. They only speak and engage with the people they interact with. But in this environment, you've seen people really extend that environment even in a virtual way. So I thought that was surprising to a degree, how quickly people adapted to it.
Thank you. Well, Anthony, I know you've got somewhat of a unique background in business, and I know that has equipped you well to be a wartime CEO, which is kind of one of the themes of today. So just to kind of get the interview going, can we start with a quick summary of how you started out with a snapshot of some of your career highlights? And also, in doing so, just tell us how they shape your thinking, your values, your approach to insurance broking today, and what you think is required from today's leaders in insurance to overcome the challenges we face from the pandemic that we're in right now.
I was really worried being interviewed by you, Andrew, because you struck me as a man who can pack about 6 questions into 3 seconds. So you didn't let me down. So I'll try to handle all 6 pieces. So look, I'll be succinct, right? I come from very humble beginnings. I grew up in a very, very small town in rural Pennsylvania at the base of a mountain. In fact, there were only about 1,000 people in the town that I grew up. My father was a steel worker, a welder. My mother was a sewing machine operator. And a lot of the values I learned, I really learned in those humble beginnings. And as far as a leadership perspective, every leader is only as good as their passion, potential, performance can be based on those they're surrounded with. And I've always been lucky to be surrounded by just great people, and some of them are here in this webinar right now. What I would say is that what equipped me, and I would say this to all leaders and anyone as they're coming through their career, is to push yourself to what others see as impossible and go places that others don't want to go to. And not just physically, not just being an expat, leaving America and coming to the United Kingdom, but even mentally. And that structure, it comes in understanding that fear becomes to be defined as the total of lost moments. And regret and excuses that people wrap around themselves, their lives, and their career is what stops them from achieving level of greatness. So I'll answer it the way my father shared with me. I lost my father young to Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a neurological disorder. And towards the end of his life, he said to me to define greatness. And I took a very common approach about goals and objectives and the things we all say when somebody asks us, what is greatness? And then he reminded me of something. So to answer to your 4th point, is that he said, greatness is only attained when others duplicate what you started. And that, from a young man hearing that, to a man of 65 today, as I tried to honor that definition that welder shared with me. So what you do then, is as my career started, was I literally was repossessed cars. I worked in my 20s as a finance adjuster. Finance adjuster means the guy that comes after people's car when they don't pay their loan. So that fits an Italian-American background, and it's not the scene of a movie. But
we have other names for it here in London.
Yeah, I'm sure. But they also had a small insurance agency. I always worked for very small organizations. That's why I have such a love of our community-based organizations here in the UK. And what happened was they asked me if I wanted to start to sell insurance on straight commission, life insurance, motor, homeowners, no salary, straight commission. And to me, I was like, yeah, people won't be trying to blow up my car, shoot at me and stab me. Straight commission, that sounds like a really good idea. So that's how the insurance career started. But then as my career progressed, and I was blessed to have an opportunity to write some books over the years and different things. My background developed into organizational development, finance, operations, sales, marketing, and helping organizations grow organically. So I would say that it's a matter of pushing what you think is impossible. And as we leave each other today, what is that for you? And who do you need around you? And you create a personal board of directors, men and women who will challenge you in your business and life plans. And then you have at it.
It's been very interesting to watch you building your team in the short time we've been working together, and looking forward to seeing great things come from that. Just turning to the organisation you're running, I know that Marsh Commercial have a range of clients that range from kind of startups to established, mature UK companies, and their needs are going to be very different. Can you give us a flavour of the variety of challenges and issues your clients are engaging you on, and how you're mobilising your frontline team and the broader Marsh organization to meet the variety and urgency of your clients' needs when everyone is working from home?
Yeah. So when you work from home, and let's convert that to be something popped on the screen. Is that
that's the interactive poll, and
okay.
it disappears as soon as you click on it, so it should disappear.
Because it's hard enough doing a presentation to, instead of being in a room with you, look, but then when a bolt comes up and blocks all your faces, it changes the focus even more. So here's the key to what's happening right now. Every client, regardless of size, has to be given strategic engineering and solution-based environment. Far too often, as we all know in our business, we fall prey to transactional instead of consultative. So the whole concept, Marsh Commercial, I'm sure many of you are the same way, is how to apply a consultative science to the world of insurance and risk and bust out the transactional. I wasn't concerned about a work from anywhere environment. And I say work from anywhere versus work from home because some people aren't working from home, they're working from other locations. And when you do that, when you get that, tasks can get done. And that's what I'd ask yourselves to consider. Are tasks getting done in a work from anywhere environment, but is strategy cascading? Does mission and vision stay intact? So, Andrew, to your question about companies, they're struggling. So whether it's an SME or a more mature or a larger company, many of them lacked a strategic plan. They were working in a transactional turnkey environment. When they now have to re-engineer themselves, the restaurant that now works with takeaway or whatever it might be, they didn't necessarily have the talent around them to think that way. They may have started that from a sole traders from scratch, and they were great at widget manufacturing. But when the paradigm shifts, that's where organizations like yours and ours have to really show our acumen. So if you think about it in 6 ways, what's the leadership? What's the leadership in your organization? And then how does it transcend to help strategically in the client? How are you marketing yourself internally and externally? What's the expected outcomes? What are you researching and developing that's new, different, innovative, and challenging? Because if it's the same old right now, those organizations are going to get tore up because the world won't go back to what it looked like. It can't. The genie's out of the bottle. So it's got to be reconstructed now to think about physical space as collaboration and training versus where you went to work, and the client struggling with the same thing. So the more futuristic we become, the more futuristic the results of the client we serve. But it doesn't matter if it's a small SME or larger, the challenges are the same. In fact, in some cases, the larger organization may be too slow and baked that it can't turn on a dime as quickly as a small one can. So those 6 areas are very, very important.
So it sounds to me like you are encouraging the team to be proactive rather than reactive in terms of their client engagement.
Yeah, and let me take that a little deeper. We hear the term CEO, but I don't know how to explain to in a way that it matters what CEO is. Chief Executive Officer is a military term because corporates follow the military model, general to private. I'd rather look at it this way, that a CEO is a coach, an entrepreneur, and an owner. Coach yourself and others, be entrepreneurial in your thinking, and act like an owner. So what I express at Marsh Commercial, right, we have almost 3,000 people in 60 plus locations. So how do you scale, right? Because you've all heard that bullshit thing, right, about big organizations are slow and they can't move fast. Well, the opposite's true, right? Because we can be lightning quick when you galvanize. So what happens is you look at those 3,000 people and you say to them, I look at every one of you as a CEO. So what we did was we installed a leaders lab, and instead of inviting SVPs and different layers, we said, no, 2,700 people are invited. Guess what? We have hundreds of people coming to my leadership lab. Now it impacts them to think like a business owner so that when they're working from anywhere, they apply that strategy. Now you can scale an organization. You want to transfer that same type of knowledge base to a client. So we're not just insuring their risks, we're insuring their future. Because our world, we're trained to think in expiration dates. Oh, when's your policies expire? But ideas have no expiration date. New ideas don't have an expiration date. Can you imagine, think for a second, can you imagine your leadership coming into your leadership council? I see Geets on here and Hannah, right? Talented professionals at Marsh Commercial. Can you imagine if they came in and said, we have a new idea? And I said, well, you know what? We're going to wait till August because new ideas renew in August. Huh, it's nonsensical. So it's the same thing should apply. Are you challenging yourself and others? Are you giving people the speed and efficiency to grow? Give them a platform to think on their own and act inside a structure of strategy for yourselves and your client. Those that can do that make the difference. Andrew?
Absolutely. Do you see others doing enough, or do you think the industry? I mean, I hear your leadership and see your leadership loud and clear. Do you feel the industry is maybe facing a reputational challenge as a result of the pandemic?
Yeah, a bit. So, but here, that reputational challenge, we asked for it. And let me give you an example. I see, because this is unusual for me, I wasn't used to seeing this type of behavior in the broker environment or even insurers. It seems here, even before I came over as an expat, it seemed that people put a lot of energy in trashing the industry by trashing each other. I remember in America, before I even came, there were articles being written, commentary from brokers saying, oh, let's see how the American CEO does in Great Britain. Will he go out and meet the people? And these articles were written. I was sitting back in New York going, what were these fools? Because, we hadn't even met yet, but they're taking a trash the opponent option, instead of focusing on how to make the industry better, themselves better, and focus on their own knitting. Well, when I came here, I thought, wow, that's you can exploit the hell out of that. So what happened is the industry attacks each other instead of working together on a common goal for the client. And I see head shaking as I'm talking on a screen. So what we do is if we come together and work to strengthen and help that industry, then we get better. Otherwise, we're going to get exactly what we deserve. That's why I wasn't surprised by it. How could you be surprised by it when, there's an old story, you can't win a pissing contest against skunks. So if you crawl on your belly like a snake, then you can't believe when people step on your head. So, but if you rise above it and be classy and show it and say, look, no, hey, you know what? There's great people everywhere, small brokers, small carriers, big carriers. There are great people everywhere. If it wasn't, we wouldn't rate each other. But when they come, give them a strategy to enact to. Don't give them a platform of hate for the industry or others in it.
So, thank you. That's really inspirational. Thinking over the long term, I think we all generally expect that COVID-19 will change the ways we live and work. But we aren't completely sure at this stage what that means. What are your learnings from this, and how will that shape the way you and others will invest in technology, design and build teams, and the propositions that will ultimately serve your clients?
Yeah, and I'll look, this is always going to be a work in progress right now. So we're lucky, as I'm sure many of you are, that we had the technology and the depth of it to be able to have everybody working remotely within a few days. So quickly, there's well over 6,000 of us in the UK and Ireland, but I'll just focus on Marsh Commercial. We were able to put everybody working from home, as I know many of you did. But then what happens? What's next? The definition of community broker is evolving now and will change. If you think about your own locations, people really didn't come to our branches or our offices to buy insurance or interact. We go to them. Even with 60 plus locations, I can tell you that They weren't knocking down the door in Exeter, Shrewsbury, and other places to come visit every day. And I've been blessed to be able to travel through the country and see all our locations. So the community broker.
You did go out and meet the people there.
Sorry?
You did go out and meet the people.
I did. Well, that's the first thing, because that just seemed to be common sense, didn't it? Plus, I had to understand, the geography of it all, because obviously, think about it, I can be from London to the middle of the United Kingdom quicker than I can get across Manhattan to Queens. So I was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Are you kidding me? I can move around here like at lightning speed. So when you think about the future, is the community broker, the community organization isn't about bricks and mortars there anymore. It's about where the colleagues live and interact with the environment, with the community. So if you think about Zoom, for example, and you're doing a presentation now, in the past, in paper, you put your references and client list on paper. Maybe they called them, maybe didn't. But now you can invite the reference to the Zoom call. When you're on with a prospect or client, your reference, your colleague, your client can actually be there live and give a testimonial. This opens up incredible opportunities. So it's going to, Andrew, it's going to be reconstructed, but I think it's going to be constructed where real estate becomes collaborative hubs. But here's the key thing, right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the key, is what's between your own ears. If you're a traditionalist leader who thinks that they can lead from a command and control environment and have that bricks and mortar and everybody be in there punching a clock, and why did you come back 10 minutes early from lunch, and where were you, and what do you mean your baby was sick, then you're going to struggle in this, right? Because trust will break down. But if you're more of a blended style of traditional with futuristic, then you'll start to look at buildings for what they are, and you'll start to see technology for what it could be. And that's where I think, that's why I say leadership is the key to this, is how you think. Because I can guarantee you, look, let's talk about it. All over the country right now, there are people expressing to their, well, wait till we're back in the office. I can't wait to be back in the office. Yeah, but I got to tell you, I think that single mom who now has a chance to read a story to her baby at night and not commute 4 hours, or the person that looks after a sick mom and dad who now can have more of a balance of life, I don't know if they're going to be with you on that one. You might be walking alone down that road.
We've only got a minute left. It's been a great pleasure talking to you today.
Me too.
As you kind of look at the way we're going to adapt and the fact that we're not going to have the opportunity for perhaps the physical face-to-face interaction, although things like Zoom give us the opportunity we're taking today, do you see the world of kind of client relationship intelligence and being able to gather information, be it structured or unstructured? Do you see that as being kind of something that's going to really help reshape the way we engage as an insurance sector and in broking sector? Yeah,
and a very quick answer. I think we'll only go where it's productive to do so. So that we'll still be face to face. We will still meet with each other, but we'll do that because it's the most productive way. Not because it's the usual way of relationships used to be like that. We met at the pub, we went to play golf, different things like that. Well, the futurist will evolve now. The tactician will evolve. The strategist will evolve, because the relationship, good old boy, girl network is going to get crushed, because it's not going to be able to rely on that old world thinking. It's going to have to bring it. It's going to have to bring an outcome-based environment. So we'll still meet, but people are only going to meet with us when it's productive. Not because I was in the area and decided to take you to lunch. That old style, probably going to get crushed.
Interesting. We've been doing an interactive poll, has been chatting. It's interesting that deeper and faster changes to the coverage offered to businesses was called out as one of the biggest challenges that we face in the short to medium term. That really concludes the formal part of the interview.
It was quick.
That's been a great pleasure chatting to you.
Thank you. Good call.
Everybody that's joined us, if you could please hang on. What we're going to do now is we're just going to break for about 8 to 10 minutes. We're going to go into breakout rooms.